This is TWIS, This Week in Science, episode number 1015, recorded on Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Librarians will save democracy. I really think so. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, I'm going to fill your head with chatty apes, AI exaggeration, and inference about everything, pretty much. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. What do you do when the system is broken? When you watch your contributions set to the side, a token, emotion that others are going through around you, so many words unspoken, do you stay where you are and hope that the fight is worth the capitulations keeping you up at night? Do you speak out when others are silent, potentially to become a sign of the violence they say that people like you are getting up to? Do you step down? When you do, are you silent underground? Or do you use your moment as a beacon for others, for sisters and brothers who know you did what you could, that you stood for science and knowledge and working for the good of society? Just like we do here on This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science. What's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science.
Good science to everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of This Week in Science. It's me, Dr. Kiki, and I'm here on my own this evening without conversation partners. Blair and Justin have other things they're up to tonight, and so I'm here to talk with you. I'm so glad to be here. Just honored that I get to spend part of my week every week talking about science with all of you. Oh, yeah. So what do we have on the show tonight? I have stories about science in Washington, woohoo, forever chemicals, exaggerating AI, chatty apes, prey manipulation, and astronomical inference. And of course, everyone in the chat room, I'm so glad you're here. And please ask questions, chat it up. Let's talk about stuff. I am here to talk with you. And as we jump into the show here tonight, I do want to remind you all that subscribing to This Week in Science on your favorite podcast platform is a great way to get the edited version of the show every single week when we do the show. You can also find us broadcasting live Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific time-ish on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can also find new show notes and episodes if you go to our website. There's also our Patreon link and our Zazzle link if you want to do those things at twis.org, twis.org. Are you ready for the science? Mm-hmm. Yes. I hope you're ready for the science because I am not keeping silent. No, we're going to talk about stuff tonight. First on my list as we dive into the science tonight is a story about what's happening in Washington and what has been going on this past week. The big story this last week is Alondra Nelson is resigning from the National Science Board and the Library of Congress Scholars Council. A letter was written in Time magazine, time.com, why I'm resigning from positions at the National Science Foundation and Library of Congress. Alondra Nelson has acted as a acting director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy until 2023. She has also been from 2024 on the National Science Board, Library of Congress Scholars Council. She's been doing these things 4 years. She has been working within the institutions of our government and believes in them and has been doing what she can to make sure that science and all people in society are being heard and represented and involved in the process that is science, that science is responsive to the people in our country. So anyway, she's been doing that, but this last week, and the May 13th is when this letter came out. Dr. Alondra Nelson wrote in her notice that over the past few years, in these diverse bodies that are guided by the legislative branch, not the judicial, the head of the Library of Congress, who was just fired this last week, the head librarian of the Library of Congress, in the last week, along with Alondra Nelson's resigning from the Library of Congress Scholars Council and the National Science Foundation's board. Dr. Alondra Nelson has, she wrote that she was honored to be appointed. She's been working for these things for oversight of the National Science Foundation's mission, also oversight of the Library of Congress and its mission, both of which are, to a certain degree, controlled by Congress. The Library of Congress is part of a constitutional mandate to preserve American documentation, political documentation, everything that might be needed for members of Congress to do research, to be able to learn and govern in an accurate and responsive way. There is a children's part of the library that's involved, but it's supposed to hold all of the texts that are produced within the United States. It's a massive, massive undertaking to organize this library. And this last week, Trump got rid of the head of the Library of Congress and has put in an acting librarian of Congress who was one of his lawyers when he was found guilty of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to conceal a payment to an adult film star, according to NPR. This person is Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. And this person has been appointed. There were a couple of other people who were appointed additionally, as the Librarian of Congress was kicked out. Also, the the Register of Copyrights and Director of the Copyright Office were additionally kicked out. And thank you, librarians, for listening to your lawyers and standing up for the legislative branch, Congress, and the rights that are constitutionally given to Congress to preserve knowledge. And they kept appointees that had been appointed as acting librarian and acting register and director of the Copyrights Office. They did not allow them into offices. And so they are waiting to find out what Congress tells them to do, because they are thankfully working for Congress, not the president, even though the president does have the power to be able to appoint these people to lead the Library of Congress and also the Copyrights Office. Those appointments have to be confirmed by Congress, and they haven't been. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to the librarians who have been standing strong and are standing up for the Constitution and separation of powers within our government. Alondra Nelson, in her letter and how she finished this letter, she says, "My resignations are both an exit that amplifies, are both an exit, leaving, and a voice, speaking up. They're not mutually exclusive. My resignations are both an exit that amplifies the voices of others. By departing these advisory roles, I am to speak more clearly in my own language about what they have become and what they ought to be. This is not an abandonment of loyalty to these institutions' missions, but rather its highest expression." The aim of the resignation, she writes, is to break free of powers that seek to limit knowledge and silence voice. to signal that certain boundary lines have been crossed, to insist that advisory roles must expand knowledge and be more than appendages to predetermined decisions. So thank you, Dr. Alondra Nelson, for standing up for what you believe in and taking this moment to give voice to what is happening at our government center and how it's impacting important organizations, institutions like the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, the Library of Congress, and how that will impact information and knowledge and hence power within our country moving forward. Additionally, this last week, the Environmental Protection Agency announced today. Oh my gosh, they announced today, Wednesday, that it's delaying the timeline for water utilities to comply with getting rid of forever chemicals. So PFAS, all of them, PFH, XAS, PFNA, HPFO, PFBS. There's a whole bunch. In 2020, or the earlier Trump administration, the EPA under Trump, Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, said they were already working to protect Americans from PFAS in drinking water. And this started during that first administration, and Lee Zeldin said it's going to continue under his leadership. However, this last week, they said, we're going to put a delay on it until 2031 for PFOA and PFOS. And it's rescinding and reconsidering the limits for PFHXS, PFNA, HPFO, PFBS. These are regulations that were created during the Biden administration. In April 2024, the Biden administration put limits on these chemicals. And the regulation requires communities and the companies and infrastructure, local infrastructure that provides water, to either find different water that's clean or to make sure that there are filtration systems in place to remove these chemicals. We know these chemicals are showing up more and more in people, and that they are biologically accumulating, so that when you drink water, if you eat a fish who swam in that water, all this stuff is like, it's going to be in you for a really long time. So anyway, Lee Zeldin's like, no, this is in front of Congress today. Doesn't mean that the limits get weaker. When I go through a process, we follow the law. At the end of it, the final levels might be at a lower number, not a higher number. Yeah, they might be. Oh, okay, I don't know. But what they're doing is potentially getting rid of regulation of 4 compounds that were previously regulated, and extending compliance deadline for 2 of the really big ones, PFOA and PFOS. Now, what happens when you extend the deadline for compliance? Well, nobody complies until they have to, and then they try and push it off a little bit longer. So the EPA has analyzed the costs to companies, and it's about $1.5 billion a year for companies to comply with this regulation. It's a lot. It is. But PFAS, these perfluoroalkylates, these forever chemicals, cause cancer, heart attacks, strokes, birth complications, other diseases that are afflicting communities, especially poor communities, rural communities across our country. And by delaying the removal of these things, we will continue to bioaccumulate. We will continue to see these compounds in our water, and we will continue to see health impacts and deaths as a result that can be specifically tied to these compounds in our water. Of course, we want to make sure that the companies who create these chemicals are also regulated. I mean, it's like plastic in the rivers. The best way to get rid of plastic in the rivers, in the ocean, other places, is by making less plastic. Just you don't put as much plastic in there, right? But once it's in there, what do? Well, we're trying to filter it. We're trying to get the plastic out. These forever chemicals, they're not as visible as those plastics. The microplastics are pretty bad too. But if we can't only stop or regulate the production, we really are, and that's good, but $1 million here, a few $1 million there, the companies are still raking in profits, and they're still going to do what they can to get around regulations. So what can we do? Localities need to put in filtration or cleaner water sources to protect people who live there. If you're paying taxes in an area, shouldn't your water, shouldn't it be clean? I don't know. So anyway, the Safe Water Drinking Act actually has a measure that I didn't know about. It's called the Anti-Backsliding Provision. NPR says this provision deems it illegal to weaken a drinking water rule once it is set. So these rules have been set, and it seems as though the EPA itself is trying to weaken them. Although, the companies that clean the water, they're like, thank you, this is great. I love it. Oh my gosh. Hello, Misha from Slab City. Yes, the chemicals coming from the Salton Sea. Absolutely. We've got so many. Pepsi Cola, you want more danger, huh? I think people are working on that for everyone. Okay, moving on from these Washingtonian stories, let's talk for a second about, yay, here's danger. Large language model chatbots. Oh my goodness. So we've talked about these a bunch on the show. And the issue that has come up in a study this week out of, where is this study from? UUNLEN, yes, Utrecht University in the Netherlands. Yes, la la la. Lars van der Kooj, wait, no, those the press officer. I am sorry. Hugh Peters at Utrecht University and Benjamin Chin Yi, Western University and University of Cambridge, analyzed 5,000 large language model generated summaries of scientific papers. In 73% of the cases, you want to guess? Accurate or inaccurate? More accurate or less accurate? I'm giving you a chance. More or less accurate? Dun, dun, dun. I haven't seen any comments yet. I'm sure there's a little bit of a delay here. 73% of these cases, the models summarized them inaccurately. Over a year, they collected 4,900 summaries from journals like Nature, Science, The Lancet. And then their question was, how accurate are the summaries that Claude and ChatGPT-4 and Gemini and others? What are these large language models doing, and how are they summarizing things? They tried to create accurate summaries. The chatbots, after the summaries were provided that were inaccurate, were probed again to produce more accuracy. They were specifically asked to avoid inaccuracies. And then the conclusions were exaggerated even more often. When they were asked to be more accurate, they doubled down on overgeneralization and exaggeration, nearly twice as likely, the researchers say. So if you have policymakers, for instance, who are like, I want to know what this study really says, and they're not asking the researchers, they're asking ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, Grok, I don't know, they're potentially around 3/4 of the time. And if they're asking for like really precise summaries, they're going to get less precise summaries. They're going to be getting less and less accuracy and more overstatement and broad claims. The researchers say that previous studies, suggest that these LLMs do the broader claims because they're trained with texts that have conclusions that generally have like broad claims, or a broad claim in the abstract, for example. He says human experts also tend to draw more general conclusions from Western samples to all people, for example. The generalizations weren't problematic in the original articles that they found, but the summaries were. One of the things that they suggest here is that the reason that these AI generated science summaries are not doing a great job of accurately presenting the science that they're supposed to be summarizing is that the LLMs are told to be sensational. They're basically told they want a positive response. They want people to like what they say. And if you have a more generalized, broad statement, it doesn't really say much necessarily. And if people go, oh, yeah, all right, then the AI has done what it was trained to do, what it was programmed to do. The alignment, even though it's inaccurate, the alignment of the model to its algorithm and to the rules that it has been given in order to like train itself, it's a downward spiral. So the researchers actually suggest that if you would like to use chatbots to summarize any scientific news then out there, they'd say Claude had the highest generalization accuracy. And additionally, if you enforce indirect past tense reporting, that helps in your prompts. If you're a programmer, set the chatbots to lower temperature, which is a parameter that reduces the chatbot's creativity. So don't let them be creative. Just have them be accurate. We don't want the creativity. I just find this very interesting. And Laura D, what you're saying here. So they're human then, doubling down in their inaccuracies, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Shocking. Not so shocking. I think the more we can all talk about the issue with these LLMs, these chatbots, and the algorithms and the training, all this stuff that goes into the black box of the model to create these versions of whatever we're using, that if we go into it knowing that it wants to make us happy, that it wants us to give a positive response, because a positive response means that we might engage more, right? So it's like scrolling on social media. The algorithms there are primed for engagement, for you to scroll, maybe click on an ad, maybe click on a thing. Oh, something. Oh, a baby. The algorithms are personalized in a way that drives longer time and more engagement on their site. And that's what the algorithms are trying to do in social media. Same for these LLMs. Their job is not to give you accurate information, even though you ask for it, which is really weird, right? They are predicting. They're predicting things. They're the worst intern. They're really, really bad. But anyway, I think people need to be aware of this, and we all need to be talking about this so that we can use these tools well, as opposed to have them use us. Dun, dun, dun. Wouldn't that be good? Totally. Speaking of tools. Haha. Oh, Aaron Anathema. That's a really good statement. This sounds like a case of if you make people think that they're thinking, they'll love you. But if you make them really think, they'll turn on you in a heartbeat. Exactly. Okay, just out of JPL this week, researchers published in the journal Nature on May 14th, and additionally in the journal Nature Astronomy on April 23rd, 2 separate studies related to the interiors of moons. Our moon and, well, it's not a moon, it's the asteroid Vesta. That's kind of I don't know, what is it, a solar system moon? Kind of, it's orbiting out there. The asteroid Vesta and the moon are very different. However, the moon is known to have more of a core, some volcanic activity. There's a lot of shifting and layers going on in the interior of the moon. We've been looking at it for a while. Vesta, as an asteroid, we haven't really known a lot about, and people have thought that Vesta is layered in the sense that you have the heavier minerals and elements that go to the core to create a core, and then you'd have like a mantle and a crust. So these differentiated layers are typical of bodies that have enough gravitational and mass that they all get sucked in. Anyway, both of the moon and Vesta, they are impacted by gravitational forces from other solar objects, right? So the moon orbits around the Earth, and as it orbits around the Earth, the tidal forces and gravitational forces of the Earth itself go, "Hey, moon!" And the moon goes, "Ah!" And it gets squished and squosed. And the researchers finally took a method that has been used to look at some other moons in the solar system, and they used the gravity recovery and interior laboratory data. This was a mission. The spacecraft, I love the names of them, Ebb and Flow, orbited the moon from December 31st, 2011 to December 17th, 2012. So Ebb and Flow orbit around the moon. Woo, woo, woo. I don't know. If you're listening to the podcast right now, I have my hands going in circles that make absolutely no sense for an orbit around the moon. But the methodology that was used is line of sight to the Earth. So the Earth is tracking the location of those craft in their orbit around the solar object, which, speaking of solar system, this moon. So the moon is going around the Earth. We're looking at the craft that are orbiting the moon, going around the moon, which is going around the Earth. And as the moon is going around the Earth, it's being squished and squozed by the Earth's tidal forces. And ebb and flow were also impacted in a little squish and squoze by the moon's gravitational forces. And so there are small movements based on gravity that are the result of large pockets of mass, so mineral deposits, lots of rock, etc., versus other parts that maybe are a less dense area of the moon. And so over time, very many years actually, of these two craft orbiting the moon, and of all the little wobbles, it's like a Doppler shift. The little wobbles that come from the gravitational forces of the moon itself as it is being impacted by the gravity of the Earth. It allows us to infer the mass of the moon. It allows us to create a gravitational map of the moon. And so the researchers, in effect, with this new study that was just published, they've, according to this press release that was written, it's the person who wrote it, the name is not here. That's too bad. They have the most accurate, most detailed lunar gravitational map yet. And so this could allow future missions to calculate better places to land, so location and time on the moon, and to be able to maybe find places where there's hollows where we could put human colonies, or maybe that there is a massive deposit of something. But it gave us information of the inside of the moon, reinforcing that the moon itself has the near side more squished and squozed than the far side, because the near side of the moon is always kind of being impacted by the tidal forces of the Earth. And so the volcanic activity is really coming from all that. It's like the face of the moon is the Earth's squeeze toy, and it feels it. It's been squished and squoshed and heated up a lot. Anyway, Vesta, which is way out there, and the Dawn spacecraft went and hung out, and they were able to get data through the Deep Space Network radiometric system to get imaging data from the Dawn spacecraft when it visited Vesta for almost a year. And they found that it doesn't have layers in the way that other solar objects do. And the same kind of thing, line of sight, Vesta's going around this asteroid. And because of the deformities in this weird chunk of rock out in space, there's some places with lots of iron, other places where there's not a lot. And the deformities of the whole asteroid were then kind of shifting the orbit of Dawn. And then because we were looking at Dawn, like, here, there it is. We're checking the Doppler wobble and what's it doing? And we got such accurate data that they were able to determine that Vesta has what they think is a very homogeneous interior, that either there was maybe it hasn't been around long enough to actually get distinct layers. Maybe it doesn't have enough iron in it for a core to be created. But really, they think that what it suggests is that it was formed because of a massive, I don't know, massive collision in space somewhere. But Vesta is impacted by Jupiter and Mars, and so there's some really interesting stuff. Maybe Vesta wobbles as it spins, and so the inertia, the moment of inertia, is what this research is looking at, and you can't just measure the moment of inertia of a planetary body. You can't do it. So they're inferring it based on the wobble of the craft that are orbiting these things. So it's pretty cool. It's a new methodology, and it's been used. Juno and the Galileo spacecraft did Jovian satellites. Io's gravity was also measured. And so we've been able to determine these things through the years, but this is some of the most accurate. And it's been like a decade in the works for this research, looking at this data and applying this technique to this data set. So it's pretty cool. I know, Pepsi Cola, space science is so cool. Yeah. And yes, Misha, I'm a wacky waving inflatable flailing arm tube lady tonight. Yes, that's the way it's working. Oh my goodness. I don't know. Maybe someday we can all use, some little orbiting thing to figure out our moments of inertia. No, thank you. I don't think I want that. Moving on, I had 2 studies this week related to trapping of prey. And the first one is one of Blair's favorites, the assassin bug. And the assassin bug, this study, looking at this particular species of assassin bug, Pahabenkakia piliceps. Pahabenkakia piliceps. This assassin bug, it's a scary looking bug. Oh my goodness, I'm going to share a picture of this thing here. This particular assassin bug really, really, really likes their prey species of a certain species of stingless bee. I mean, number one, the bee doesn't sting, so that makes it easier. And additionally, the bees have an arrangement where they put a resin around the outside entrances to their hives. And normally, invaders to the hive come in, predators, and they get stuck in the resin. And then the bees can come, and even though they don't sting, they can still potentially push a predator out or get rid of it in some way. Is that how this assassin bug uses the resin? Does it just allow itself to get stuck in the resin? Oh, no, 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 no. No, it does not. This assassin bug takes the resin, breaks it off of the outside of the entrance to the beehive, and then rubs it on its legs and then sticks its legs out into the entrance, near the entrance. And the researchers don't know if the assassin bug is, if or not the assassin, if the bees are approaching because of the smell of the resin having uh, been disturbed. So the resin's normally sitting there, and maybe because it was disturbed, that is a signal to the bees to come out and to see what the mother is, right? Or is there something else going on? Like, because these assassin bugs are not getting stuck in it. The researchers say that they are using the resin as a tool. And so this tool they use not as if they are choosing to use it and they know what they're doing with it and they're changing the way that they use it. They always use it the same way, the researchers say. It's like an instinct that these assassin bugs, it's like they're born with the knowledge that they're going to go to this prey species hive and they're going to rub resin on their legs and then eat the stingless bees, that they're going to use it to catch the stingless bees. Yes, the sticky bandits. Exactly, Paul Disney. Yeah, and Misha, exactly, trapping their security alarms off for a snack. So right, that's potentially what is exactly what's going on here. But the fact that they manipulate the resin is why the researchers are suggesting that this is tool use. But they aren't saying that it is like a cognitive strategy. They're saying it's an instinct, that they instinctively use the tool. And the reason that the reason they're calling it a tool is because they're not just putting their legs near the resin and sitting near the resin waiting for the bees. They're picking it up, they're breaking it apart, and they're putting it on their arms or their legs. I mean, I guess it's an insect, so it's all legs. Yeah. But hey, that's how they catch their yummy stingless bee preys. That's what they want. And this is how they get it. The researchers did find that there was a difference in which legs they used. They found they had more prey if they were able to use their fore and their mid legs as opposed to no resin, or their back legs, which makes sense. The front and mid legs are closer to the mouth, right? Closer to the mouth parts. The fact that it's an instinct, though, is something that I find very interesting. And the idea that tool use can be instinctual is a new idea for me. Like, we don't know how to use pencils, right? Nobody says, this is how you do it. This is what you go use this pencil and you'll communicate. That's not a thing. This telephone, these are tools, right? Our hands are tools, but things that we put on our bodies. And I think there's a real area for inquiry here about the idea of tool use as or a specific tool use, not general tool use, but a specific tool that's instinctual. And how does that instinct, not just fear of snakes, not just fear of spiders, how does the instinct to rub your legs in resin and wait at the mouth of a beehive, how does that get into your little insect brainstem? I think it's very fascinating. Anywho, totally interesting stuff. So let's talk about flamingos now. This is our other tool wielding. Well, no, they're not tool. They're beak wielding animals. And the interesting thing that was just discovered about flamingos that came out of UC Berkeley this last week and was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Researchers from UC Berkeley, Georgia Institute of Technology, Kennesaw State University, and the Nashville Zoo, they worked with Chilean flamingos at the Nashville Zoo. The researchers, the lead researcher on this study, Victor Ortega Jimenez at UC Berkeley, he specializes in biomechanics and was at the zoo with his family and was looking at the flamingo beaks and said, they're supposed to just be filter feeders, which means that they shouldn't be doing lots of motions or active. They're supposed to be passive filter feeders, which means stick your beak in the water and the water goes through your beak and you passively get food. That's what everyone thinks. Serene, single leg standing flamingos with their head in the water, just like drinking straws. Not even, anyway, it's more active even than drinking straws. So apparently, through his studies, he was able to determine that the L-shaped beak of the flamingo allows them to basically have a little efficient straw that's in the water. They chatter their beaks, something like 10 times a second, 12 times a second. I can't even do it. Something like that. Anyway, like it's a really fast chattering of the beak, and the chattering of the beak creates a suction and a turbulence in the water that enables them to actively filter feed. Even beyond this, he looked at their feet, and they have webbed feet. Flamingos don't just have long bird toes. They have webbing between their toes, but it's not a firm webbing. It's very floppy. And he did studies to find out about the difference between floppy flamingo feet and firm flamingo feet. And what he was able to find is that floppy flamingo feet are better for mixing up the bottom of the water and pulling organisms like brine shrimp out of the sediments to get into the water column, where their chattering beak could be used to enable the flamingos to basically be pink drinking straws in the water. Yes. So these flamingos, these Chilean flamingos, they are not passive filter feeders. Oh, no. You don't see anything other than maybe a slight ripple on the top of the water. But what they are doing is actually very active, and they are specifically adapted to be able to, as efficiently as possible, get their food source into their mouths as they can. Go flamingos, go flamingos. I think they're so pretty. They are very smelly. If you've been to a zoo where flamingos are, they're kind of stinky birds, but I have a new appreciation for the Chilean flamingos because of this study. The fact that they're there going chattering their beaks, and the shape of their beak is very specific to how they feed, which I think is really cool. I never really thought of the way that their beaks are formed and how that might contribute to the flow of food and water. But it's kind of like, I guess if you have your finger on the end of a straw, the chattering is like if you have your finger on the end of a straw and you move it up and down against the end of the water, and you pull water up the column because of water tension. So I'm imagining that is something to do with it, but I might be wrong. Oh, here's another video I'm going to show really quickly of the brine shrimp. Here comes a floppy flamingo foot. Ooh, it creates vortexes. Vortices. There we go. So much fun. So much fun. Oh, we can also see more tornado-like vortices when the L-shaped beak of the flamingo is retracted. They actually 3D printed a flamingo beak to see exactly how it changed the water column as it was removed from the water. So this L-shaped flamingo beak, as it's pulled upwards, Retraction induces tornado-like vortices. There's so much going on there. It's so exciting. I think I probably find it way too exciting. Okay, I have one more study that I brought for this evening, and then we can chat a little bit more if you would like. Kevin Reardon, yeah, the plastic flamingos don't smell so much. Exactly. I know. So how much do chimpanzees talk? I mean, I'm not talking about Coco the gorilla, talking about chimpanzee language. How much is chimpanzee language? How versatile is it? How much does it change or is it fixed? Apparently, researchers for a very long time thought that chimpanzees had fixed call vocalizations. And even though studies with bonobos are more closely related primate relatives, that it looks as though they may have more complex language structure. Chimpanzees hadn't been looked at in this particular way. And we've seen through previous studies that there's a vocal repertoire of 12 main single call types. So these are single vocal units, and there's some variance around that for particular call types. And so there are criterion, and then they have to be able to put these 12 calls into vocal sequences and then use them across different sequences. And so the question is, what's going on there? Are they just like big, apple, friend? I'm not going to, food. Oh, hawk. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what their calls are. But these researchers said, okay, there's got to be more going on, and let's take a look at what's happening. So they found that there are compositional call combinations that chimpanzees utter bigrams or two call vocal sequences. And they say that they may combine information about self-identity and either food, like a pant hoot plus a grunt, or subordination, a pant hoot and panted grunt, or information about danger and recruitment, a who bark sequence. I love all these. So there's question about event specificity, these bigrams, how much combination can be used, and so how broad is the language syntax that chimpanzees use. There isn't a lot of work that has really dug into this previously. And so these researchers looked at 4 combinatorial mechanisms corresponding to 4 different scenarios. And so they checked out mechanisms that were involved here, and they were like, oh, we're going to show you a picture. And then what do you think about this picture? And what are you going to do in this situation? Go chimpanzees. Woo. And as they went through these studies, they found that the chimpanzees, are like 50 of them in the study that they were using, that there actually was a fairly versatile combination sequence for different units in different situations, which I don't know about you. I don't think it's that weird, honestly, but the researchers are saying, hey, this is really awesome because it suggests that the syntax or grammar aspect, the syntax aspect of human speech, of Homo sapien, Homo habilis, going way, way, way back, maybe even started earlier than our genus itself. That maybe the basis for language had its start much, much earlier in primate evolution. And there's part of me that goes, duh. Of course it did. We're the first. Oh my gosh, just because we know what our words are, and we haven't been able to figure out what chimpanzees are saying to each other. We're appreciative of birdsong and we use it as a model for human speech and the complexity and dynamics of birdsong, we look at it, it's like, oh, whoa, it's amazing. But we don't think, oh, convergent evolution, and that there's more being said. There's more contextual information being shared than we've figured out. Anyway, yeah, it's exciting. So everyone, be excited. Your language, my language, the language that we use to communicate wherever we are in the world, the basis for it came before our brains, came before us, and it probably came before a common ancestor that we share with the chimpanzee. Dun, dun, dun! So exciting. I know, I love it. But that's what I did. I put these stories together into a show for everyone tonight, and I just talked and talked and talked, and I can't believe it's already been an hour. My goodness. How do we do that, everybody? Did anything happen in your lives this week? Anything science-y that you're interested in? Yeah, I thought they were fun stories. Thanks for being here and being here for me sharing them with you, because I mean, honestly, it's what I really love to do, is try and share these stories with you. I find things and I go, that's really cool. And then I want to find out, if I can find a neat angle to them, why they're interesting to me, why they might be interesting to you. What other questions can we ask about them? Thanks, Paul Disney. It's been a fun hour. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. All of you. Thank you. Thanks, Pepsi Cola. I am gonna finish the show then. Oh my gosh. So weird not to have my co-hosts here. They're off. They'll be back again next week. But all of you, thank you for being here. And I hope you enjoyed the show for what it was, with me talking about science for an hour. I hope you liked it. I really do want to thank, as always, the people who help make this show possible. My co-hosts who aren't here. All of you in the chat room who are here listening, so that I don't feel like I'm just talking at a camera and not actually interacting with you. I appreciate you being here so much. And those of you who help keep the chat room really good, a good, healthy, respectful place to be, I appreciate you being a part of that effort. Let's all be good to each other. Fada, thank you for your help with show notes and social media. And I did try to look into our social media stuff, and it's a meta side of things that I'm having issues with. I got to work that out. Gord Arnlower, thank you for being here. Identity 4, thank you for recording the show. And Rachel, thank you for editing the show. And as always, thank you to our TWIS or Patreon sponsors. Bum, ba-dum, dum, dum. Thank you to Robert Norland, Robert W. Farley, Lauren Gifford, Dana Lewis, Eden Mundell, Alan Viola, Aaron Anathema, Arthur Kepler. Glad to see you tonight, Aaron. Arthur Kepler, Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kent Northcote, George Corris, Piel Belazar, John Rataswamy, Chris Wozniak, Bagard Chefstad, Don Styles, aka Don Stylo, Ali Coffin, Schubru, Sarah Forfar, Old Boomer, 847, PIG, Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Andrew Swanson, Fredis 104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Bruden, Noodles Jack, Brian Carrington, David E. Youngblood, Sean Clarence Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, aka Z McKen, Hayes, Howard Tandris, Rappin, Richard, Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Clem Mide, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, David Neighbor, Eric Knapp, Lon Makes, EO, Adam Mishkan, Kevin Perchan, Bob Calder, Margie, Paul D. Disney, Patrick Pecoraro, and Tony Steele. Thank you, everyone. Your support on Patreon right now is very, very appreciated. Thanks to everyone who's able to be here for the show. Thank you for those of you who are able to support the show through Patreon and PayPal. I know there are others of you out there who are supporting us on PayPal, and I do appreciate that method of support as well. I really can't do this show without all of you. If you are interested in heading over in supporting TWIS as a Patreon sponsor. I can't speak tonight. Head over to TWIS.org, click on the Patreon link, and choose your level of support. We also have our Zazzle store where you can go and find cool TWIS merchandise. Click on that Zazzle link. Parts of the purchase do go to help This Week in Science. Oh, on next week's show, oh my gosh, we'll be back. I'll be back, and I do believe my co-hosts will be back. Justin and Blair will be back. We will be speaking with each other and you about science news. Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, broadcasting live from Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Look for This Week in Science. Hit subscribe and notifications if you want to watch us live every week. But if you want to listen to us as a podcast, make sure you look for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found and subscribe. Make sure you share with a friend as well. That's if you enjoyed the show. I mean, even if you didn't enjoy the show, you should just subscribe your friends anyway, and then they could be like, oh, why'd you do that? No. For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes, links to stories, etc., go to TWIS.org, where you can also sign up for a newsletter. I will send one, I promise. It's going to be great when I do. We love your feedback as well. So if you have a topic you want us to cover, address, suggestion for an interview, just a comment, let us know on one of our social media accounts. We're usually TWIS Science, or This Week in Science out there wherever we are, or you can just send us an email. And if you do, though, make sure you put TWIS into the subject line so that your email does not get sucked into the L-shaped beak of a Chilean flamingo, because I am not going near there because it smells fishy. We really look forward to discussing science with you again next week, and we hope that we will see you again. If you learned anything from the show, remember, it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.